So that day, then, when the crop duster was doing the donuts over your property, were you also seeing or feeling any sort of spray or mist?
To address the initial issue, are you going to need any testimony from her?
I believe so, Your Honor. We would like to make an offer of proof.
So go ahead and just have a seat. So back on the record on case number 21-1038, Odum versus Frey. We're meeting outside the presence of the jury. Counsel is present, all the parties are present. We're in the middle of the direct testimony of the plaintiff, Salisha Odum. Mr. Busby.
Your Honor, I'd like to make an offer of proof as to Ms. Odum's testimony about the prior incident with Mr. Frey.
This is the subject of the previous lawsuit.
Yes, Your Honor. And I'd like to make arguments as to why she committed.
This would be related to what you testified to and also to your motion to admit exhibits 1 and 2.
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
This would be additional support for the admission of those facts. Now, we've heard Ms. Odum's testimony about the impact of these repeated incidents. Now, the prior incident, there is no dispute that it occurred. Her evidence that there was a lawsuit with Mr. Frey, there was a spraying incident, and that it was settled. Those are the 3 facts that we want to introduce to Ms. Odom's testimony. Now, why are those facts, why do they make an issue of fact more or less probable in this case? Number 1, for our intentional tort claims, they show knowledge. Mr. Frey and his company, imputed through Mr. Frey, should have known or did know that Ms. Odum was an organic farmer, number 1. It shows knowledge. Number 2, it shows intent, which is an element of what we alleged, but given that there was a prior incident, the fact that they continued to fly over her property, as she's testified and as we've provided video evidence of, a reasonable juror could infer from that the fact that they were acting intentionally. They were using Mr. Frey's plane as a weapon of intimidation against Ms. Odum. 3, absence of mistake or accident. Now, there's been inferences that these were, these were good farming practices, the kind of spraying that occurred in these instances. In light of the prior incident, what happened here, we don't think is a mistake or an accident. If you, as with the car accident analogy that I provided the court with earlier, if you are subject to an accident once, it's not going to happen 3 more times. That makes it relevant to our claims and makes any prejudice that's created as a result of the prior act. It doesn't prejudice Mr. Frey unfairly because there's no denying that these incidents occurred. Any prejudice is fair. And this is typical in these kinds of situations where prior bad acts are alleged. If it's just to attack Mr. Frey's character or to show conformity therewith, it's inadmissible. But again, that's not why we're offering it. We're offering it to show those elements that I described earlier, but also the fact that why this is such an extreme situation for Ms. Odum. I mean, you have to balance the unfair prejudice against the unfair prejudice to her, which is, largely her complaints and her frustration and her difficulty arising out of the situation is the fact because it happened to her before and it had devastating economic effects to her, which makes this situation all the more worse. And without the jury seeing that entire picture, she's suffering prejudice unfairly. As far as unfair prejudice to Mr. Frey, there's no, there's no allegation that there's an admission of liability or anything like that. He's perfectly able, in his case in chief, to rebut that fact. That's not even, if we wanted to have a lawsuit about that, we would have alleged or we would seek testimony as to fault or something like that. That's not what we're doing here. We're just only showing that it happened before. And with that, Your Honor, in addition to the the argument related to the discovery requests, the request for admission, and the interrogatory responses, we think there's clear and convincing evidence that these things happened. They admitted they happened in their own discovery responses. Ms. Odum's testimony just puts that into context and provides the jury with, the full picture as to what occurred here. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Leath?
Well, Your Honor, Mr. Hebert is going to continue to handle this issue.
I'm sorry, I should have remembered that. Mr. Hebert, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I created some of the confusion by objecting that term, so. Your Honor, to get the full picture, I think that you need to defer your ruling until you hear from Mr. Frey. We can make an offer of proof to Mr. Frey, but what Mr. Busby said is that in our discovery responses, and this is an exact quote, we admitted these things happened. No, we didn't. We admitted that she made a complaint. You've heard testimony already that she's claiming that she was sprayed, she felt it, her eyes burned. But Mr. Lum, an independent witness, conducted tests on her produce and found nothing, except for less than, almost undetectable levels of a particular pesticide that was sprayed in combination by Mr. Frey, so it must not have happened because otherwise they would have found the other one. The point is this, we didn't admit to anything in our discovery responses. And we had no duty to anticipate that Mr. Busby would come in with prior bad acts. And this isn't the only prior bad act, unless he's dropping or waiving the complaint by Joe Frey, because that I thought was one of the other bad acts, but I guess he's waived that one because he's not talking about it. But knowledge and intent, Mrs. Odum does not control the airspace of her property. There are other agricultural fields around her property. Mr. Frey is entitled to conduct his business and help those farmers by spraying their crops. And if you heard what Dr. Miller was saying, Dr. Miller, I thought, came very close to saying that some drift is almost unavoidable. But there was no proof in this case of any drift on her property. Not found by anyone. Although Dr. Miller tried to tiptoe up to it and say there was some drift. The point is, knowledge of what? Mr. Busby's trying to find an exception to the rule that you can't use character evidence. But it's a very strained argument that he had knowledge. Mr. Frey had knowledge. What? Knowledge that there might be drift? Yes, he had knowledge that there might be drift. Did he know that it was going to drift on her property? No, he was trying not to, which is why, of course, you need to hear from him. So I suggest you defer ruling on this until you get the whole picture. But weapon of intimidation? What was his motivation to intimidate her? He didn't like organic vegetables? Anyway, Your Honor, so first of all, we believe and we argue that for you to allow these prior bad acts, these other incidents, these complaints into evidence will impermissibly expand this trial into proof of other incidents and what happened and when. And that's the prejudice to Mr. Frey is far outweighed by the probative value of showing that he was intending to spray her property to intimidate her. So that's our argument.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and rule this time. Let me just tell you how I'm going to approach this. I think, and I understand why we did this, but in my mind, there are three separate evidentiary rulings I'm going to make. Two of them are related, and one of them is, if I drew the Venn diagram, there would be some relationship, but not all overlap. So the request for admission, which is Exhibit 2, simply is an admission that there was a knowledge of a prior complaint. The interrogatories, I think, are related to that, and so as I go through, and I'm going to apply I just want, I want the record to be clear if anybody else reviews this down the road. And I'm going to apply the thunder analysis to all three of these evidentiary standards. And so, with respect to the request for admissions and the interrogatories, at least the fact that the acknowledgement that there's a knowledge of a prior complaint has, with the admission, that has met the clear and convincing evidence standard. Now, and so that's exhibit 1 and related to exhibit 2. As far as the third, or the other issue, as I understand it, that's a little broader, and that's where I think you listed 3 prongs that you wanted to explore in testimony by Ms. Odum. That is the fact there was a lawsuit, that there was well, I guess in the order, there was a spraying incident, there was a lawsuit, and that there was a settlement. Am I correct that those are the 3 things?
That's correct.
And at least based on, I have not read all of the interrogatories or their answers to the interrogatories or the request for admissions and the subsequent admissions or denials. But I think based on each party's office of proof, those 3 things are not admitted to. They admit that there was a complaint. And Ms. Odom would testify on as to the other things if I were to allow it. Ms. Odom would testify as to those, that there was a spraying incident, a lawsuit, and a settlement. But the request for admission, they don't admit that, they admit knowledge of a complaint, but not that it was, they did specifically deny that it was a spraying incident, as I understand it.
Yes.
If I may.
Yeah, read it.
The request states, admit that prior to the year 2020, Frey Spray and Jerry Frey had knowledge that Odum had previously complained that she had been personally sprayed by pesticides by Frey Spray LLC and Jerry Frey.
Knowledge that she had previously complained.
That she had been personally sprayed.
Yeah, all right. But that doesn't mean, that's not an admission that they sprayed her, it's an admission that they had knowledge that she had complained. But I think on this third one, you want her to be able to testify that she was sprayed, that there was a lawsuit, and there was a settlement.
Correct.
And that's beyond the scope of the request for admission. It wouldn't be beyond the scope of her testimony. That's my only point. And so, prong 1 as to the interrogatories and the admissions, I think, had clearly been met by the clear and convincing evidence standard. Or have met this. I think the fact that there was a lawsuit, that clearly is, they could meet the clear and convincing evidence standard. The fact there was a settlement, that would meet the clear and convincing evidence standard. Whether or not there was an allegation of a spraying incident, I think that would meet that standard. Whether that one happened or not, I think that's clearly why people settle cases, is to avoid those types of findings, or why they go to trial. I think that's why we're going to trial now, to clear that up. I'm not sure that I'm satisfied that, or that we're equipped in this trial to make a finding with clear and convincing evidence that there was a spraying incident. I think it's clear that you could meet the standard that there was an allegation of a spraying incident. So as to that, as for testimony, about the alleged spraying incident, the lawsuit, and the settlement. I'm not convinced that we're equipped to make a finding that there was a spraying incident, but I am convinced that we met the standard for that there was a lawsuit and there was a settlement. I don't think that the fact there was a previous lawsuit, I don't find it relevant to any of the reasons that you set forth as to knowledge, intent, absent of mistake or accident. But maybe more importantly, I find that its probative value is substantially outweighed by the unfair prejudice, and that's particularly with respect to the fact that money has been paid previously. And so I'm going to exclude Ms. Odum's testimony about the prior lawsuit in its entirety. With respect to the request for admissions and the interrogatories, that's a much narrower issue. That's the fact that there's an admission that there was a previous complaint. I find that there is a greater degree of relevance to this case than the fact that there was a previous complaint, particularly as to the absence of mistake or an accident, depending on how the finders of fact take the testimony of what I would anticipate that Mr. Frey's, or to the knowledge that there was someone who has a complaint. So I do find that there is some limited relevancy that exceeds the relevancy because I think there's a sliding scale of how relevant something is. The previous lawsuit itself, I think, is not very relevant to this case. But I do find there is some limited relevance. As to the third problem, whether or not the probative value is substantially outweighed by the prejudicial impact, once again, I'm going to come down on the side that it currently is, as the evidence says. You may review this after Mr. Frey testified. Mr. Hebert said that put off a ruling. I think it's important to rule now. I always am open, because I don't know how the evidence is going to come in, and candidly, I've tried enough cases sitting where you've sat to know that when I sat there, I didn't always know how it was going to come in. Sometimes I thought I did, and it didn't. And so I'm going to find that as it stands right now, that it's the limited relevance of the admission of the knowledge of the complaint, and as is contained also in the interrogatories, that its probative value is substantially outweighed by the unfair prejudice. And I think it's particularly, one key issue here is, it's not, what I think you're trying to show is that there was some knowledge of previous spraying incidences, but here in your complaint, you have 3 distinct incidences that show the same thing. And so it's also cumulative in the sense that she's going to be able to testify to all 3 of the incidences that are the subject of this complaint. And I think that reduces the probative value of the prior case, and I think it tips the scale of the unfair prejudice prong of that third weighing. So as it stands right now, the previous lawsuit, the alleged spraying incident that gave rise to the previous lawsuit and the settlement are excluded. I think it's highly unlikely that we'll revisit those and we'll let those come in. As to the admission of knowledge of the complaint, depending on where it is, I'll let you renew that, depending on where the evidence is. And if it becomes more, the weight of the relevancy becomes greater, than the probative value may at some point outweigh that. I don't know that, but it doesn't right now. And so those, all 3 of those, Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and then the testimony about the prior lawsuit, the spraying incident, the settlement will be excluded at this time under the Thunder analysis. I'll let whatever record you want to make, and since it's going against Mr. Busby, I'm going to first let him respond, and then I'll let you.
Just one small thing. What about the other incident?
What other incident?
That's the criminal complaint through Joe Frey.
Oh, I mean, I have no idea. But let's
One thing at a time.
Yes, let's. This is confusing enough. Let's keep the record clear.
Thank you, Judge. It's a very clear ruling. We object on the record. We definitely understand your logic.
Sure.
And the only other thing I wanted to be clear on is that I reserve the right to introduce other portions of the interrogatory response to request for admissions other than the 2 that you agreed on today, which was interrogatory number 5, that response, and request for admission.
Sure. And my ruling is only as to this, what you sought to admit, because I have no idea what the other one's saying. And Mr. Hebert, do you want to make any type of record on my ruling on the prior to that act?
May I consult with the co-counsel?
Of course.
to add, Your Honor.
Thank you. And so then, Mr. Rivera also made inquiry about the Joe Frey incident that I feel like I'm parachuting in, like, into the middle of a movie that I haven't quite seen before. So, do you want to clarify that, or, I mean?
Your Honor, we'd just like to reserve the right to make another offer of proof in the moment where Mr. Frey's here, he can testify to provide information that might be necessary for the jury or not.
So we'll deal with that when we deal with it, if we do. So there are two other things I wanted to address. My law clerk, or my court clerk keeps telling me I gotta talk to the microphone so to make sure that the recording hears me. So at 2:12 in the afternoon, we had a bench conference, and then shortly thereafter at 2:16, we had a bench conference. They both dealt with Dr. Miller's testimony and his use of the Amoresco report. At the bench, I listened to both, or all three counsel talk about that. Mr. Busby indicated that it was a report that he relied on in forming his opinion. I said that I thought that that is consistent with what I think the law allows an expert to do. And there, I think there was very limited inquiry about that afterward, but I wanted to make sure that the record was clear. And then at 2:16, we had a brief bench conference about, I think Dr. Miller, I'm assuming, I'm reading between the lines, but I think he was probably retained in the previous lawsuit. He made some inquiry, or made some statement. You interrupted and objected. I ordered that testimony be stricken, but I think that's what we did at 2 o'clock, 2:16 in the afternoon was that, and at 2:12 was the Amoresco report. To either side, and I guess because you made the objections, Mr. Busby, do you want to make any type of additional record? Did I accurately state what we talked about at the bench?
Your Honor, David Leath, I made the objections.
I'm sorry, what did I just?
Mr. Busby, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Leath.
Yep, I made the objections, and I understand the court's decision, and I have nothing further to add.
And Mr. Busby, anything to add on either one of those?
None.
Okay, thank you. Then I think, should we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes, please.
Can we, yeah, maybe 10 minutes?
10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and let everyone take a comfort break. We've been going for an hour and a half, and then we'll come back and continue with the examination of this item.
Your Honor, if it would please the court, if it's easier, if we can continue tomorrow morning, I think I can get through Ms. Odum's her testimony in another hour. And we've got 2 other witnesses we want to call, and they're just kind of the neighbors, eyewitnesses. Their testimony should be brief. So if it's easier for the court to call it a day now for privacy's sake.
I don't know, this is, I mean, I don't know what the remaining testimony is, and how long will you have with this?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm fine with adjourning for the day. It sounds like, and again, I haven't had a chance to talk to Mr. Busby about the anticipated witnesses for tomorrow. But if he believes his direct examination will be an hour or so, I can definitely be shorter than that with my cross-examination, I believe. And then, we could be very efficient tomorrow morning, it sounds like, so.
And your expert comes at 1:30?
Yes.
Okay. And so you would anticipate, Mr. Busby, that you'll finish your case tomorrow morning?
Yes, Your Honor.
And even if you don't, you're okay with Mr. Leath taking his witness out of order?
Yes. It's experts. Yeah, I can.
Okay. I don't think, I
Can
think it's more
Mr.
like.
Busby and I talk for 1 minute?
Of course.
All right, Judge. Thank you. Mr. Busby and I are in agreement with the schedule for tomorrow. We'd like to, I guess, just share with the court what we believe would be the efficient way to handle this. We'll Busby finishing the testimony of Ms. Odum tomorrow, and then 2 additional witnesses that are on his witness list for the plaintiff. I believe both of those would be relatively brief in duration. Then there's a 3rd witness that I think may take a little bit of a evidentiary issue. And then it sounds like by that point, Mr. Busby will be ready to rest. So we would be in good shape for beginning the defense case in the afternoon. Does that sound correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And let's just say, I want to be prepared, if we finish at 11, say, in the morning, I mean, do we want to, is there a chance your witness will be here a little earlier, or is 1:30 that right?
You know, I can have him, hopefully.
I mean, I just don't know. I'd like to send him on a lunch break, but not necessarily, I mean, we'll just see. We'll just deal with it and see where we're at.
I mean, we can, I mean, let's put it this way, it sounds like I think we'll be able to fill the morning between the remaining witnesses and evidentiary issues and.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, I think that, he's confirmed to be here at 1:30 tomorrow. So,
A lot of times, okay, that'll work out fine. So let's go ahead and, is there anything else we need to address?
Nothing from the plaintiff this time, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
No, Your Honor, I can't think of anything else to share here.
Nothing.
Then why don't we bring the jury back in? I'll excuse them for the evening, and then we'll just recess for the day.
Okay.
We're back on the record on case number 21-1038, Odum versus Frey. The record should reflect the presence of the parties, counsel, all court personnel, and the jury. Will counsel stipulate to the correct seating of the jury?
So stipulated.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are going to take our evening recess and send you home for the day, and we'll come back and start fresh at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Let you go to the jury room. Try to have some refreshments for you when you get here. But we'd like to start fresh at 9 o'clock, go right till noon, break till 1:30 at lunch, and then come back and go till 5 tomorrow, get a full day in. You're admonished over this overnight recess not to converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with the trial. Do not communicate with anyone in any way regarding the case or its merits, either by phone, email, text, internet, or other means. Do not read, watch, or listen to any news or media accounts or commentary about the case. Do not do any research, such as consulting dictionaries, using the internet, or using reference materials. Do not make any investigation, test a theory of the case, recreate any aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own. Additionally, it is your duty not to form or express an opinion on any subject connected with the case until it is finally submitted to you. You're directed to return to the jury room tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be in recess.
All rise.
Back on the record, case number 21-1038. Odum v. Frey. The record will not reflect the presence of the parties, the counsel, all officers of court. We're meeting outside the presence of the jury. This morning, juror number 2. And during voir dire, she had indicated that her father was ill, and he had emergency surgery last night, and related to our court staff that it wasn't going well, and that she was visibly distressed. I have not talked to her, but I'm inclined to excuse her. We have 2 alternates, but I'll probably bring her out just to confirm it, and then, is any questions anyone wants me to ask or anything?
Not from the plaintiff here, we have no objection to this.
I don't have any questions or no objection. One moment.
Can we get a clarification, Your Honor? If the juror is excused, which sounds like a great idea, would the first alternate move up?
Would they all stay seated? The first 8 would go into the jury room.
Okay, so person in that seat right there would become part of the jury.
I'm assuming you're talking about the second one from the right.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's just all.
It's just the order that they came in, so.
okay, that's fine. No objection, and I don't think we need to,
I just want to thank her.
yeah, absolutely, but I don't think we need, on behalf of the defendants, need to ask any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Case number 21-1038, Odum v. Frey, all court personnel, parties, and attorneys are present in the courtroom. We're here with just juror number 2. The bailiff informed me that you've had a family emergency come up, and we'd like to excuse you and thank you for your willingness to serve, and just give our hopes and our thoughts that things go well. Okay. So if you need to go get something, you're welcome to go into the jury room.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, can we bring in the jury? Oh, we had some, so I guess there was some evidence that was added in, not, go ahead and tell me what happened.
Yeah, last night I compiled into a list of various photos and used in my examination. So we witness today. I did that for convenience of the court, to save time examination to the process. I've shared those with Mr. Leath. I believe that there's some opinions that can speak to that, and I provided that.
So there were exhibits that were previously marked in a group as a single exhibit, and now they've been broken out into individual ones, is that correct? Okay.
That's my understanding as well, Your Honor. And so what I think we should do is, rather than attempt to move exhibits in that were part of these large video folders, we'll just go ahead and agree to allow or stipulate to the photos that were taken by Ms. Odum. Yes, I understand that.
And so what numbers are those?
She'll be able to lay the foundation for those. I think we're gonna have to go number by number.
Okay.
Unless,
I believe it's
67 for all pictures.
correct. 67 for all photos.
okay, and then what about the videos?
These are 66 and 26.
And 65.
Okay,
65 is the.
Correct.
Yes.
okay, so the photos then,
I have photos of 67 through 85.
and those are the ones we just went through, right, except for 85,
85 is,
the screen image.
that is, yes, that's right.
Okay, and did Ms. Odum take that one?
Yes,
Okay. And what's the date on
that is August 16th.
that? August 16th,
Yes.
that's exhibit 85. Thank you for your patience, Your Honor.
No.
But I think we took a minute this morning between council and can move this a little bit more efficiently now.
So those exhibits that were referenced, is there an agreement that they'll be admitted, or,
Yes.
okay. So it's
67 through 85.
those are all still photos?
Correct.
Still photos.
Okay, so exhibit 67 through 85 will be admitted by stipulation of the parties.
And then
Thank you, Your Honor.
I would just ask if the clerk, at some point in time later today, we can get an updated exhibit list. Sure.
I will have that on our first break.
Yeah,
Perfect, perfect. And just for reference, NRS 16.080 is the NRS that covers the discharge and replacement of jurors for, and it does exactly what Mr. Hebert said, that they just go in the order, the alternate goes in the order that they were called. So,
thank you.
we ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're back on the record on case number 21-1038, Odum v. Frey. All parties, counsel, court personnel, and the jury are present in the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, we excuse juror number 2. She had some personal things come up that necessitated that, and so she'll no longer be a part of this jury. And we thank her for her service, but just want to make sure you understand that that's why it's nothing that, it's just things that happen in life, so she's been excused. Will counsel stipulate to the correct seating that the jury is now constituted?
So stipulated, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Busby, I think we had Ms. Odum on the witness stand.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to continue.
If you'd come back up to the witness stand, and does everybody agree that she's been previously administered the oath of a witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let me approach you.
Of course.
I'm sorry. All right, good morning, Ms. Odum. It's a pleasure to see you again. So during your testimony, you were describing in general the market for or what you do with your produce.
Yes.
Can you describe the market for organic produce versus non-organic produce?
As far as farmer's market or just like my market or?
Is there any opportunity for you to sell produce that's not organic?
You know, I've never sold produce that's not organic, and so I'm really not affiliated with who I could sell the produce to at that point either.
Okay. Before you grow produce, do you have a plan for how you're going to sell it once it's picked?
I do, yeah. There's a plan all in place before, you even plant.
Can you describe, for example, the plan you had in place in 2020?
The plan was to sell the majority of my produce at the farmer's market in Reno, and then some stuff to the Fallon Food Road.
Okay. And can you describe the mechanics of selling to the farmer's market? Did you show up and sell food, or?
Well, no, you actually have to reserve that booth for months in advance because the market that I have and the people that I know at the Village Farmers Market, it's a very full market. You cannot just get into that market at any time. You have to have a reserved booth. And the thing is too, is if you don't go to the market, well, they fill that space. They don't just hold it because there's a lot of people who want to get into that market because it's the best one in Northern Nevada.
Okay. Is there a price difference that you're aware of between produce that you can sell as organic and produce that's not organic?
There is. I mean, there's a larger price difference. I mean, for me, I kind of, especially during the pandemic, I kind of vowed not to hike up the prices because these are people that I care about, and I'm not, money you have to have, but
So
I'm not.
what I'm asking about, what's the general price difference between a head of lettuce, between like an organic product that you would sell and something you could buy or Rayleigh's or something like that that's not organic?
Objection, Foundation.
I'll allow her to answer the question if she knows.
I couldn't really tell you the general, price because I know there's various different prices at various different stores and the farmers markets, but I do know that you can charge substantially more for organic food.
Okay. Have you ever done any investigation into whether you can just show up at the grocery store with your produce and sell it to them, right?
No, they have contracts with people ahead of time that they have to go by.
Okay. And you didn't seek out any of those contracts when you were growing your food in 2020 or 2021, correct?
No, I mean, I had my plan in place and that's what I was doing. And, that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to find, where to go. And usually those are for larger farms too, not like a farm like mine.
Okay, why would it be for a larger farm and not like a farm like yours?
Well, because, they want to know that you're going to have this product every week at this time for the whole season or the amount of time that you stipulate. And with my stuff, I make a plan and I pretty much have what I want, but, I'm not growing like a major amount of a huge, one thing either to keep that particular contract going.
Okay.
So.
All right, so changing gears, we stipulated to the admission of a bunch of exhibits, which are photographs you took. So I just want to show you some of the photographs and ask you to explain to the jury what they show, okay?
Okay.
All right. So this is been marked as exhibit number 67. And the file date says IMG 2021-0708. Does that mean anything?
That was a couple days after I had gotten sprayed with the supposable glyphosate.
Okay, and so would that have been the July 6th incident?
Yes.
Took this after that?
Yes.
Okay, what does this show?
Oh, that's the amaranth. It's supposed to be red, but you can see it's all yellow and damaged. So you can't sell that. I mean, it's like amaranth is like, it's a leaf amaranth, and a lot of people like it in place of spinach because it grows well in the summertime as compared to spinach. You know, it doesn't last as long.
Okay, this is exhibit 68. This one is entitled IMG 2021-0710. So would that have been July 10th, 2020?
Yes.
What does this show?
That's the lilac bush tree, and you can see it has a white residue all over it, and the leaves are curled up.
All right, this is exhibit 69 entitled IMG 2021-0713. So would that have been July 13th, 2021?
Yes.
Okay, what does this show?
This is a Asian green that I grow. It's called Eucaena Savoy, and it's not supposed to have all those holes in it. And you know, it's a really pretty green leaf that you sell and people eat. And
Could you
it's
sell
another
it?
thing that grows well in the summertime.
Could you sell it if it looked like that?
No, you can't sell that.
This is exhibit 70. It's the file entitled IMG 2021-0713. So that would have been July 13th, correct?
Yes.
And what does this show?
That's a pepper plant, and as you can see, it's got some holes. It's all curled up, and there's a white residue on the plastic that I use. I use a black plastic because it helps the plants to produce more.
Okay, and this is exhibit 71, 2021-0713. So
And
that would have
that's
been
a-
July 13th as well?
Yes,
What does this show?
that's an apple tree that got, you know, all the apples got shriveled up, and then it's all yellow. And
Okay, so this one's from the same date. What does this show? This is exhibit 72.
oh, that shows some a sage plant that just got completely fried.
Okay. This is from the same date?
Yes.
Exhibit 73. What is this?
That's a rosemary plant that also, you know, started turning brown. And
Okay. Exhibit 74 from the same date. What's this?
that is some hens and chicks that got completely destroyed.
Hens and chicks?
Yeah, it's like it brings in beneficial insects and things.
Okay. The plant is called hens and chicks?
The plant's called hens and chicks.
Okay. Brings in, why do you want to plant this stuff on your property?
Oh, because it brings in your beneficial insects.
Okay. What do they do for your farm?
Oh, you know, they do all kinds of cool stuff. They, you know, they combat bad bugs and things like that.
Okay. So this is the next day, July 14th. Exhibit 75, what does this show?
Well, you can see these particular plants, the green ones, those are celery, and you can see where it's all brown and fried.
Does that affect your ability to sell this?
Oh, yeah, you can't sell
Okay.
fried celery.
Exhibit 76, July 18th, what does this show?
That's tomatoes, and you can see they're all brown and curled up and dying.
Okay. Exhibit 77,
So-
same date, July 18th, what does this show?
That shows the tomatoes again where they got all fried from the spray.
Same date, exhibit 78, what does this show?
Oh, that's the potato plants that used to stand up and then they just laid down. They were like, flopped over.
Can you sell them like that? Or does this affect the potatoes themselves?
Well, I mean, you know, the potatoes hadn't really started growing yet, and then, you know, it takes a while for them to come back. I mean, they could come back, but, you know, they start flowering, and then that's what causes the potatoes to come.
Exhibit 79, July 18th, 2021, what does this show?
That shows a squash plant that got completely annihilated.
Okay. Exhibit 80, from the same date, July 18th, 2021, what does this show?
These are, this is a row of turnips, and you can see that it's got completely, it's all weathered and They've got the curling and the yellow and the gray and the,
Okay, Exhibit 81 from the same date, July 18th, what is this show?
well, this was a mustard plant that had started to seed up, but you still can get the mustards off the sides because they're mustard greens. And, you know, it's all yellow and fried.
Okay, Exhibit 82 from the same date, what is this show?
These are my second batch of cantaloupes that I had planted, and they just pretty much over time just completely died. And this is the beginning of that, you know.
So this is Exhibit 83 from July 23rd, 2021, what is this show?
Oh, that's sunflower, it's supposed to be a sunflower.
Okay, so do you sell sunflower seeds or something, or is it?
You can sell the heads, but these were just what I had grown. They came up by themselves because I planted, you know, sunflowers in the past, and so they just come up. And
Okay, how about this one, Exhibit 84 from July 26th?
that's an apple tree that you can see got completely fried.
Okay.
Chemicals.
Did your produce look like this before the incident that occurred on
No,
July 6, 2021?
Nope.
Okay. So yesterday we had a discussion about what it felt like when the plane was actually flying over your house. Can you describe to the jury what that was like?
it felt like I was being terrorized. It felt like we were being attacked. It felt like something out of my control that it should not be happening, but yet it was again. And so it was a scary incident, you know, because you don't know what to do. I mean, it's just something out of the air and boom, you know, there it is. And you have no control whatsoever. And so it just takes what you have and does whatever it wants with it.
Okay, so were you, did you fear that you were going to get physically injured?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, well,
Well, because of how low the plane was, and of course the spray coming down, and you know, it's just a crazy act, and you go, it makes you wonder and fear, you know, how is this going to keep happening? You know, how do you stop this?
okay, for each incident, can you estimate for the jury how high you think the plane was above your property?
Basically,
How about, we'll start with August 30th,
Okay.
2020, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say that plane at, you know, various times, because it would dive down and go back up, would be from 40 to 60 feet above me.
Okay, how about July 6th, 2021?
July 6th, he went straight down that road, which was right by my house, and it was right above the tree line also, 40 to 60, you know, about 60 feet or.
Okay. How about August 16th, 2021?
Well, August 16th, he come right over the tree line and straight over the top of us too.
Okay, how high would you estimate he was?
The same, you know.
How about for August 17th, 2021?
Well, on that one, he really dove down over the backyard, and so, you know, I'm thinking 40 feet, just dove down and went back up.
Okay. So did you try and take a video of the July 7th, 2021 incident?
The July 6th, yes, I
July
did.
6th. May I pursue it, sir?
Yes.
So, play this video for you.
Okay.
Ask you a question. Ms. Odum, is that the video you took on July 6th, 2021?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor, I'd like to move for admission of this video as Exhibit 66.
Please.
No objection.
Exhibit 66, we'll get that.
If I may publish to the jury, Your Honor?
Of course.
Sorry, I had an issue with my plug here. All right, Ms. Odum, I'm going to play this for you and the jury, and just when it's playing, I'd like you to just describe what's happening here.
Okay. this is where, well, I heard it and I ran and then come around straight down the road and sprayed everything and went back to the airport.
So which part of the property are you, of your property are you on right now?
I'm on the northern side. Just kind of going straight down.
Where was the plane before it appeared the first time in the video?
It was coming from the east, and it went straight, because that, our Villa Road, which runs beside my house, it went right down that road, basically following the road, and it came from the east and went to the west. And to me, it looked like it went to the airport, but.
All right, Ms. Odum, thank you very much. Further questions for you?
Mr. Leath?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, just a moment. Of course, I could organize there a little bit. Good morning, Ms. Odum.
Good morning.
So, I'm gonna spend some time with you this morning talking about a couple of the points that you brought up during your testimony yesterday and as well as this morning, okay?
Okay.
And what I wanted to ask you is you've identified, and we've had the witness talking about, or witnesses so far, kind of talking about three incidents. August 31st of 20, July 5th or 6th of 21, and August 16th, 17th of 21, okay?
Yep.
So I'm gonna try to keep them in that order while I ask you some questions. So in your mind, if you can kind of, if you're confused about which one I'm asking you about, just let me know, okay?
Okay.
So yesterday, you were talking about the incident that occurred on August 31st of 20, okay?
Okay.
And I believe you said you were outside when you first observed the plane?
Yes,
Okay. And it was in the morning?
yes,
You were working out in your yard
yes,
or garden area?
yes.
Okay. And when you observed it and you saw it multiple times that morning?
Yes.
Okay. Each time that you observed it, and did you also either feel mist or spray or see some sort of mist or spray coming from the crop duster?
I cannot say that every time, but I know about the third pass is when I smelled it and felt the mist.
Okay, and that's where you felt it then?
Yes,
Okay. And is that also when you observed the crop duster starting to do, I think you described it as doing some donuts over your property?
well,
Was
it
that
had,
that same day?
yes,
Okay. So that day, then, when the crop duster was doing the donuts over your property, were you also seeing or feeling any sort of spray or mist?
like I said, well, yeah, when it went around like that, and then, and like they said about the third time, so.
Okay. So when it was doing the donuts, you were still seeing and feeling mist?
That, well, it did some donuts, and then it came back at me, it came straight at me, because I was on my porch by that time, because I went and got my phone. And then it went around again, and then that's when I felt the spray. It was like the third pass of that particular, when he came at me 3 times.
Okay, so you, but again, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. When he was doing the donuts, that was different than when he was making the passes?
Well, he'd come straight over, and then he went, and then he'd come this way to the side, and then they started going around like this, and that happened probably 3 times over my little hoop house I had there, but then I was up on my porch, and he kept kind of did a bigger donut, and come back around and come straight at me on my porch.
And when you were outside and saw the spray and felt the mist, where were you standing?
I was standing on my porch at that point.
Okay, and I believe we saw a Google Earth image yesterday, and he kind of described where you're at, or where your porch is at on your property.
Yes.
So if we are on McPherson, looking into your front yard, the porch then is in the backyard, correct?
Yes.
So it would be on the east side of your residence?
Yes.
Okay. Because McPherson runs north-south.
Yes.
Okay. And then you would step off of your porch, continuing to walk east on your property, and then that's where you have the gardening setup. Okay. And so on August 31st of 2020, did you see any symptoms on your plants after you felt the mist yourself?
Well, when I went out, it looked like there could have been like some rippling in the leaves. I mean, there wasn't brown and curling or dying that day or anything, but I noticed some rippling in the leaves.
Okay,
And that's what I considered to be some damage.
okay. And the rippling in the leaves, did it continue to get worse over time?
No,
Did you see any of your plants dying or turning brown or anything like that after the August 31st incident?
no.
So, did you take any photos of your crops after the August 31st of 2020 incident, if you recall?
I honestly don't recall.
Did you try to document any damage to your crops at that time?
Only what I, told the Nevada Department of Agriculture.
And what did you tell them concerning the damage to your crops in 2020?
Well, just that I thought that there was a little bit of rippling. I don't even know if I told them that. I just said damage. I did not stipulate as to what.
Okay. And when you were standing on the patio of your back porch and observing the crop duster doing the donuts and making these passes and spraying you, is that when you took the video of it as well?
Well, I had my phone on pictures and, because I'm a little crazy at that point, because it makes you stressed out and can't think well and things. And so I actually took a couple photos and then I went back in the house because that plane kept coming at me and I'm like, I ain't going out there. But then he came again and he's like, I gotta try to get a video. My daughter's like, put on video. So I go, okay, put on the video. And I'm standing right out my back door. And then that's when I got that video and then I just closed the door. And I can't be out there in the middle of this.
Okay. Now shifting gears to the July of 21, okay?
Yes,
And we just saw that most recent video. That's when you were outside and you saw the crop duster flying to the north of your property?
yes,
Okay. And you also saw and felt spray or mist that morning?
I felt spray and I saw it everywhere.
Okay. And You also observed the spray on your crops as well?
Oh, yeah, it was covered.
And was it covering the, pretty much all of your crops that you had planted there in the backyard?
Yes,
And you made a report of that as well to the Nevada Department of Ag?
yes,
And you reported the first one, we heard from Mr. Lum, correct?
yes.
Okay. And generally, how did you describe the damage to, that you observed to your crops after the July of 21 incident?
Well, I do remember saying that I started seeing holes and, just everything curling up and, it over time is how it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what I want to do now is, well, let me just ask you then, and then I'll come back to that. And on the August 16th, 17th of 21,
Yes.
You were outside as well?
I had just walked out my back door.
And on that day, you also saw and felt the spray?
I felt a mess and saw it, yes.
Okay. And did you see damage to your, did you see any of the spray or mist on your plants that day?
I can't say that I saw it on the plants. I just noticed, like, that tree looked a little yellow and then they just kind of drooped down a little bit too, and that's kind of an indication that the droopiness.
Okay. And so did you take photos or try to document the condition of your plants after the August?
I don't think I did because, I'd already let a lot of that stuff go because it was so damaged. It's like, what's the point, I don't believe I even did.
But you advised Mr. Lund that you had crops that were damaged though after that August of 21 incident as well?
Well, no, I did not advise him of that because I'd already been sprayed and most everything was already damaged and dead. So, it's already from before. So how am I going to relate, that? I just know we got sprayed again.
Okay. And when you experienced these three incidents, you, at least what I've seen is you've prepared some sort of a complaint form that was submitted to the Nevada Department of Ag?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna ask for a exhibit. Thank you. Is there a paper clip that we can stay in order? Thank you. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
There you go. So I'm going to show you what we've marked as Exhibit 6, okay?
Okay.
So I'm taking a look at Exhibit 6. You see the first page there?
Yes,
And is that your signature there in the middle of the page?
yes,
All right, and this is the complaint form that you prepared concerning the July 6th of 21 incident.
yes.
And if you could, please, I think I can read your handwriting pretty well, but if you don't mind, can you just start at the beginning where, and just kind of slowly read through each sentence, and then I may stop you to ask you some questions, okay?
Sure. I heard the plane flying low and coming fast. I was in my backyard. It flew at 40 feet in the air straight down the north side of my property while it sprang.
Okay, can you stop there?
Yes,
Okay, when you say the north side of your property, that's where we just saw in the video where you were behind that, it's like a work shed, correct?
Yes.
And that's where then you come out from behind the work shed and we saw the plane to the north of your property?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I saw the spray. I was coming from the west and headed east, and I believe I misspoke that. I took a video of the plane when I went out to the field. I got very sick.
Okay. And you then continued on to the next page? Page 2?
Yes.
Okay. And where it says complaint continued, that's your handwriting?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and keep reading at the top there.
My eyes were burning, my throat swelled and started to hurt. I got a headache. I couldn't breathe well. I got dizzy and could not think or remember anything. I felt like it was some weird drug.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
My brain was in circles at that moment. I got really sick. I felt like I couldn't think. My cognitive abilities were destroyed at that moment. I was, I was gone.
Okay. All right. And then that next paragraph begins with the word when. Go ahead and read that one.
When I touched plants, they were soaked and felt like there was a thick covering over them. I also am noticing burn holes and a rough, weird look to the plants.
Okay. And when did you prepare this?
I'm assuming it was on July 6th.
Okay. So you were seeing the burn holes and the rough, weird damage to the plants pretty almost immediately, huh?
It was the start of it, yes.
Page 3 is just instructions for filling this out, so you can skip that. Now, Ms. Odum, let me ask you about page 4, okay?
Okay.
And this is the same type of a complaint form with your signature there in the middle of the page?
Yes.
All right, and on this one, this is the date of August 17 of 2020, or I'm sorry, 21, August 17, 21, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And again, if you don't mind, just kind of slowly read through. I can tell some of your handwriting, but it's helpful to have you read it.
Okay. I witnessed Frey plane spray a field to the north of my house and videoed. It says, after that, he circled toward the west, around to the south, and then to the east, and then went straight north over my house and sprayed my yard and house, and I saw and smelled spray. Took a video. You can't see the spray in the video. I got sick and burning eyes, sore throat, itching anymore.
All right, and then what does that say underneath your signature?
I videoed the plane spraying the field and saw spray, but the spray doesn't show in the video.
Okay. And then you also turn the page there, you also filled out a complaint form for August 16 of 21, correct?
Yes.
And that's your signature on this one as well?
Yes.
Okay. And if you can, just kind of slowly read this one for us.
My neighbor Wayne Anderson got sprayed too. I was standing on my porch when the Frey plane flew over directly over my backyard, traveling from the south, going to the north. At that time, I tried to take a picture and got the plane on camera over my shed. He went to the field north of me and was spraying. I smelled chemicals and got sick. Right when he flew over, sore throat, burning eyes, hard to breathe, and numb again.
Okay. All right. And then that's the last of that page, that's correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so after submitting both of those complaint forms, that's when Mr. Lum came out to your property and talked with you, collected samples, things like that?
Yes.
And we've heard from him, that's what he did, okay. Now, I also want to show you another document that perhaps you recall it from yesterday. And if you do, then I won't need to show you, but it was that organic certification
Yes.
that you had from CCOF.
Yes.
Okay, you recall that?
Yes.
What was your reason for getting the organic certification with CCOF?
Just the reasoning is because, I felt like, that I should have an organic certification because I grow organic produce.
Okay. And where you get, do you actually get like a certificate that you would use when you set up your farmer's market booth? Or?
Yes, you have to have a certificate, either the produce certificate or an organic certification to get into the farmer's market.
Okay, and then do you also display that at your booth for
I
folks?
haven't, no.
Okay, but you use that to get access?
Yes.
To the farmer's market?
Yes.
And do you also share that certification with the Fallon Food Hub people?
Yes.
Okay. And it costs money to get the certification?
Yes.
And how much do you recall,
I guess-
estimate the cost was?
I would estimate between $800 and $1,000 a year. I can't remember exactly.
Okay. And when you first got it, according to that certificate, it looked like it was at the end of 2019?
Yes.
And that certificate was going to be good all the way through 22?
Yeah, I had applied for it earlier, but you have to wait for them to come out and do their thing and all that.
Okay. And you did an application where you have to submit paperwork as to your organic plan?
Yes.
And in that organic plan, you have to explain your agricultural practices as far as how you're going to grow the vegetables, where you're going to grow them, how you can, keep them organic, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is that an application that you fill out online, or do you have to, is it a paper one that you have to send it to them?
Oh, I can't even remember. I think it's online. I'm not sure.
Okay. And then once you submit that, then what's the next step in the certification?
You have to wait for them to, to accept you or not, and go through it, and then you have to have an inspector come out.
Okay. And what was your reason for using CCOF as your organic certifier?
I just know other people who have used CCOF, and they had recommended it to me because before in the past I was certified through the Nevada Department of Agriculture, and they stopped their organic certification program, so I was able to be certified by them anymore.
Okay. And so you submitted the plan, then they came out, they performed their on-site inspection,
Yes.
and then you received your certification.
Yes.
And during that on-site inspection, did you walk around and show them your property?
Yes.
What's your source of water there?
It's well water.
Well, okay. And do you have to test your well water?
No, you don't have to test your well water.
Okay.
I mean, it's been tested in the past, but not for, that particular thing.
You didn't have to
If
test.
you have tests, they want to see them.
Okay. Did you test your well water as part of the CCOF organic certification process?
No.
Okay. Have you tested it at all since 2020?
No.
Now, once the certification is in place, then do you have to provide some sort of updates to CCOF?
Yeah, you do.
What do those entail?
Just, what you're gonna do for the next year, basically. You either say you're basically gonna do the same thing, or whatever, so. Or you
Okay.
give them any changes that you're gonna do.
All right. And that annual update then, were you able to do that each year?
I did for a couple years, yeah.
Okay. And then you, at the end of 22, you stopped with your CCOF certification?
I did.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, because there's no point in being certified organic and filling out all that paperwork, which takes a lot of time, especially during the growing season, and paying all that money when somebody can come and just spray in, there's nothing they can do about it. And I also, in fear that it's going to happen again, I'm like, I ain't going through this right now. I need to hit this head on and do something about this before I can continue on with that. But also too, with the producer's license that I have now, if I make less than $5,000 a year by law, by the organic laws, I can still claim it to be organic.
without having any certification?
Yeah, if I don't make more than 5,000.
Okay, and so you were still producing and selling organic crops in 2022, correct?
Yes.
And what about currently in 2023?
I'm getting ready to start doing a farmer's market here on the weekend, and I will be, yes.
Okay, but because you believe your sales will be less than $5,000, you do not need to have any certification other than your producer's permit?
Yeah, I mean, I've made it to where I'm not growing as much either, because like I said, I'm not gonna go out there and spend all that time and all that work for it to be ruined. I'm gonna do a little bit, I'm gonna see what's going to happen.
Did you make that same decision in 2022?
Yes,
Okay, so you scaled back on purpose in 22?
yes.
And let me grab another exhibit, please. Bring that back. Just to be safe, just want 2 pages. Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Ms. Odum, this is Exhibit 27.
Okay.
That's the producer certificate we've been talking about?
Yes,
Okay. And I know yesterday Mr. Busby asked you some questions about this, and I just want to take just a moment. Is the list of crops or commodities that's on this certificate, obviously this is for you, correct, as the owner?
yes,
Okay. And it has your farm as well as your address?
yes.
All right. And the list of crops or commodities, do you supply that information to the Nevada Department of Ag?
Yes.
And so those are all things that you grow or plan to grow?
Yes, this is
Okay.
a condensed list from years before. I mean, it's a little bit less than I would normally do, but yes.
Okay. And then under the harvest season, do you supply that information?
It's an estimate. You give them an estimate, you know,
Okay.
because you cannot be completely sure when it comes to agriculture what is actually going to happen, so.
Okay. Agreed. And then under quantity, that estimate, do you provide that information?
Yes.
Okay. Let me grab those. Now, Ms. Odum, with your relationship with CCOF, I understand that you no longer are using them as your certifier. I know you've explained that. But while they were still your organic certifier, it sounded like yesterday from your testimony that after the August 31st of 2020 incident, you self-reported to CCOF? What does that mean?
I had emailed them, I believe, and reported, they have a place on their website, because, well, I used to have an account with them, and on the account where you can send them messages as to what was going on with their certificate.
And so you told them that you had been sprayed?
Yes.
Okay. And just approximately when did you communicate that to CCOF?
I know it was in a couple days, within a couple days after the spring.
Before or after Mr. Lum came out, if you recall?
I don't recall.
And then you, what was their response to you at that point in time, if you recall?
I do remember them saying that they were gonna try to call the NDA to try to find out what was going on with it, but they had replied to me that they would not talk to them about it, and so they had to wait for reports to come back and things.
Okay, and NDA, Nevada Department of Ag?
Yes.
Okay. And, and then eventually, you did receive the report from Mr. Lum?
Yes.
And in that report, it had the results from the lilac sample that had been collected?
Okay, so we're talking about 2021?
No, 2020.
Oh.
In
Well, I
2020,
don't believe it was was lilac, I'm sorry.
that's okay. In 2020,
Yes.
yeah, you get the report back from Mr. Lum,
Yes,
and it collected samples from two different areas, two different plants, correct? One was the lilac, it came back as non-detect, correct?
yes,
And then as we talked about, I believe you showed us yesterday on the Google map, the lilac plants were closer to your back patio.
yes,
And then as you would go east or away from your patio, that's where the pepper plants were?
yeah,
Okay. And then the report also had the laboratory analysis for the pepper sample as well, correct? And that's the one that came back as a non-detect for one chemical, but then 0.009 for the other chemical, the chlorpyrifos.
yes.
Okay. And did you then share that information with CCOF?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the response from CCOF to that information?
Well, they had responded that it was under, the limits of, for, like, you can have so much in there for organic, I guess.
So it was below any level of concern?
Well, for them, yes.
Okay, and they said that you could continue to sell your crops organic with their certification?
They said I could.
Okay, and did you?
Well, you see, it was already late in the season, and the farmer's market was almost over. I couldn't even get my booth back there. And things were overgrown. A lot of my greens and things that I was selling to the co-op had already, overgrown. And you gotta go out there and you gotta cut everything down, and then it's, hopefully come back, as far as the greens go and things like that. And so, there wasn't a real window at that time for me to do that.
So when you received the word back from CCOF that it was still okay to sell your crops as organic with their certification,
Yes.
but what you're saying is that the season was over, and so that you were unable then to sell any additional crops?
Yes.
Okay. And from the time of the incident until the time you received that report from Mr. Lum, and then the approval from CCOF to continue to sell your produce as organic,
Yes.
did you harvest and sell any of your crops?
No.
So from August 31st of 2020 till the end of the season, you did not harvest or sell any of your crops?
I had sold some winter squash that I had already picked before the spraying, which was in my shed that I was holding, because with the winter squash, you gather it and then you sell it as you go.
But otherwise, no new crops were harvested?
No.
Correct?
No.
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct.
Okay. And what was the reason for not harvesting any additional crops after the August 31st of 2020 incident?
Because we were spraying with chemicals and we had no idea what it was. And so I don't want to eat it. I mean, when you see with your own eyes, it's different when you go to the store, you don't even know, but when you see with your own eyes, no, I'm not selling it to my customers. They don't want sprayed food. And that's the thing. And like I said, this certification, wonderful, but it really does not define who I am or what I do, because I don't spray chemicals on the food. And my people know that. My customers know that. And I don't want to eat it either. I'm not going to go, see, I was like, no, not happening.
Did you, let me ask you a different question, that same time frame, did you continue to farm it though? I mean,
Did
you
I
continue to farm it, did you continue to irrigate it, did you continue to
I have a
pull
time when the
weeds?
water's on, yeah, it was growing, you
Okay.
know. It was still there.
So if you were concerned with the chemicals, then
Yeah.
why did you continue to farm it?
Well, I wasn't farming, I just didn't turn the water off. I didn't go out there, I didn't do anything, I didn't do any weeding, I didn't do any picking, I didn't do anything. The water was still on. The water, I have drip tape that runs out and a timer runs it and it's on a timer. No, I didn't do anything because we didn't know what was going on, you know, we're trying to find out and we don't know, but yet it's still a bunch of chemicals and no, I don't know why. That's just what happened.
After the August 31st of 2020 incident, you observed Mr. Lum collecting foliage samples from the pepper and the lilacs taken for testing. Did you go out and collect any samples of foliage yourself so that you could send it in for testing independently of what the Nevada Department of Ag was doing?
I believe I did.
Okay, and what were the results of your testing?
I'm not sure, I can't even remember what those results were, so I have no idea. I would have to look back in the records and see.
Okay, and what plants did you collect samples from?
I believe it was, you know, the same plants. I believe it was only like the pepper plant, I'm not even sure, so.
And was it the pepper foliage that you collected or the pepper crop itself?
I believe it was the foliage,
Okay,
the vegetation.
and what lab did you send it to?
I sent it to NRESCO in California.
You sent you sent it there directly yourself?
I don't even remember, I'm trying to figure that out. I assume that I did, yes.
Okay, and what were the results?
I don't recall exactly what the results were.
Okay,
I would
and did
to
you
look
have
back.
those, when did you get those results?
I don't know.
Did you have them before you received the report from Mr. Lum?
I don't think so, because it took me a while. I didn't have the money at the time, so it took me a while to get up the money to, because it costs a lot of money to get those tests done.
Sure, how much did it cost?
I'm not exactly sure, you know, hundreds of dollars, so don't have a lot of money.
Hundreds of, like, what's your best estimate as to how much it costs?
I don't know, maybe 500 per sample. I'm not exactly sure.
And you sent in one sample?
As far as I know,
And what were the instructions that you gave as to what should be tested for that sample?
you know, the thing is, it's gonna,
I'm sorry, I'm gonna do a best evidence objection to this line of questioning. I'd like to approach the bench to discuss this.
Of course.
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so, and just to follow up, it was gonna cost hundreds of dollars for you to have the sample tested, and so you decided not to.
I don't know about that. I honestly don't recall what happened. That was quite a long time ago, and you know, it's nothing I've kept fresh in my mind.
I just wanna make sure, and then I'll move on to the
Okay.
next. But you're out there the day after, you're out there on September 1st of 2020. You're concerned because you got sprayed and your crops got sprayed.
Yes.
You have the ability to collect this sample or this foliage, send it off to a lab, get it tested, and then get some peace of mind as to whether or not it comes back positive for a pesticide. But you don't, but what your testimony now is that you don't remember.
I honestly don't remember. It was a long time ago, and the fact is that when you know, I don't have a lot of money, and so I do not remember. No, that's true.
But your testimony yesterday was that you had to wait until the Nevada Department of Ag results. And so
I
by
did
sitting
wait.
around waiting, you lost your opportunity. And I'm asking, why didn't you take the initiative yourself? Because you did collect the sample, the the foliage sample, why didn't you take the initiative to have it tested yourself?
Because I didn't have the money, and not only that, nobody cares about the samples that I take. They do not go into consideration to the NDA or CCOF, okay? They only care about the tests that come from NDA.
So, let me shift gears. The July 5th, 6th, 21 timeframe?
Yes.
Okay. We've seen photos this morning that you took after that, correct?
Yes.
And you've described the condition of your crops,
Yes.
and it's your belief that the symptoms observed in those photos were because of the spray that landed on your property.
Absolutely.
Okay. And it's going to be the same type of question as I just asked. Did you collect any plant tissue samples from those crops that you observed at your house and for purposes of testing to see if there was any chemical residue?
I did collect those, and they're still in my freezer to this day.
You never sent them off for testing? Okay. And why not?
Because nobody cares about the tests that I take, because I could supposedly contaminate them. It has to be the NDA.
And who told you that?
The NDA, CCOF.
I'm not objecting so far as that calls for privileged communications.
Oh, withdrawing, Your Honor. So the samples then of the foliage, what plants did you collect it from?
I'd have to look back. I don't even know. They've been in that freezer for so long. It's probably marked. I mean, I don't even look at them, so.
Any of the ones that were in the photos that we saw earlier today?
I'm sure. I honestly don't remember that either.
Right. And so you still have those, but you decided not to send them off for your own
Well, I didn't have the
testing?
money, and then also it doesn't do any good because nobody cares about my tests.
And Ms. Odum, I'm gonna ask you,
Yes.
let's let Mr. Leath finish his question, and then I'll make sure he lets you answer.
And then, Ms. Odum, bear with me, same questioning with respect to after the August 16th and 17th, 21, did you go out and take any additional, collect any additional samples yourself?
No, I did not.
And I understand from your testimony that after the July of 21 spray that you felt and saw covering, like you said, covering all of your plants, I won't put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you just stopped farming at that point in time.
Yeah, I really was wrong.
Okay, so did you continue to irrigate the plants in July of 21?
I did for a few weeks, yes.
Okay, and did you do any other farming, pull weeds,
No.
anything like that? Do anything like, train the tomatoes, trim any of the melons as they're stretching out too far, anything like that?
No, I didn't do anything like that. We did not even go outside, and I would not let my children go outside.
Okay, and so then the decision you made after July of 21 was that you were not going to farm and you were not going to harvest and you were not going to sell any of those crops.
For a while, I mean, yeah, that was my decision because everything was ruined anyways. You can't sell stuff with holes in it and dead produce. So it wouldn't have mattered if I wanted to or not.
And those holes that you observed, you saw those almost immediately, correct?
The coming on of them, yes.
And so then, just to make sure, it was your decision to go ahead and not harvest or sell any of the crops, correct?
If you want to call it a decision, but when the plants are dead, you can't harvest them. Okay.
And just just bear with me,
Okay,
because this is a process of
Yes.
asking you questions that are important to my client. After the July of 21 incident, you then self-reported that, like you talked about, to
Yes.
CCUF?
yes,
Okay. And you explained to them what you had observed?
yes.
And was it the same response that you needed to wait until you had the Nevada Department of Ag report to submit to CCOF?
Yes,
Okay. And then after you submitted that report from the Nevada Department of Ag, it was prepared by Mr. Lum, the response from CCOF was what?
well, there's really no response because it was, well, the test came back negative for what he said he was spraying.
And so CCUF said that there was no restrictions on your certificate, you could continue to sell your crops as organic, correct?
I believe I don't even believe there was even a real response to that because of the negative test.
So there was just no restrictions right from CCUF, no restrictions from CCUF at all, correct?
As far as I know, yeah.
And then finally, did you self-report the August of 21 incident to CCUF?
Yes,
Okay. Submit the report as well from the Nevada Department of Ag?
yes.
And did CCOF place any restrictions on your ability to sell your crops as organic after the August of 21 incident?
No, there was no crops.
And again, after July of 21, no crops were even really farmed or harvested, and you didn't even attempt to take them to any farmers markets or fallow food.
Well, I couldn't take it to the farmer's market because once you're not there, then they fill that booth so you don't have your booth anymore. And as far as that goes too, they were all damaged, so, and then I did, was about going back out to do some weeding and start cleaning some things up and stuff, and that's when we got sprayed again.
If you knew you were gonna, for example, lose your spot at the farmer's market, and you had samples sitting in your freezer that could have given you your peace of mind knowing what the results were, why didn't you
There's
act
no-
on it?
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, why didn't
There's
you
no
act?
peace of mind in those results, sir, okay? Because when you're completely sprayed and your farm is completely sprayed and you see it, those test results are not gonna change that. All right, when things are damaged and dead, it doesn't change that. Those results do not change that. Because it could have been anything that he could have sprayed, he could have told us anything, and you would have to know what it is to test for it. It could have been any herbicide as compared to glyphosate.
I want to, would it be okay to take a break, because I need to queue up some additional
And we've been going,
exhibits.
we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, so. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. During this recess, it is your duty not to converse among yourselves with anyone else on any subject connected to the trial. Do not communicate with anyone in any way regarding the case or its merits, either by phone, email, text, internet, or other means. Do not read, watch, or listen to any news or media accounts or commentary about the case. Do not do any research, such as consulting dictionaries, using the internet, or using reference materials. Do not make any investigation, test the theory of the case, recreate any aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own. Additionally, it is your duty not to form or express an opinion on any subject connected with the case until it is finally submitted to you. It's 10:20 now. We'll come back at 10:35. Recess.
All right.